All right, folks. Here we go with another episode. I think this channel is now going to be focused more on presentations, as I have recently put up two, and maybe solo podcasts. Because there are still, I guess, hurdles that are that need be overcome. So doing that got to be delayed. I think. I shouldn't rush to it. I came to the realization that, you know, my target should really be 100 videos plus, I don't know, 101 or something like that. And until then, I can't really come to a clear, I can't have a clear idea of whether this endeavor was a waste of time and effort. I cannot. So I think minimum 100 to before calling it off, I guess. And I guess some people would encourage more. They would say, keep going. Like, let's say, I mentioned this before, that, for example, Joe Rogan's podcast, first episode that I ever watched was in like the 700s or so. So, if it took Joe Rogan 700 uploads, somewhat, approximate, to get to you and the wider public, why do you think it would take you less? Why do you think it would only take you, let's say, 80 views? Yeah, so that's something to consider. But in this video, I just wanted to basically talk about the two presentations that I put up. I think I could do more of them. There are various thoughts or thought experiments that get caught up in my mind. And one channel in which I could express them, and sometimes they're induced and actually end up being expressed, are in my essays. And I wish in this channel to share those essays, because you see, when an essay is assigned in a university, they give you options, 5, 6 different topics that you could choose from, and then you would likely choose one that would be closest to your interest, or something you already have a leaning or a position on, and then you try to read up on the material, and then be more educated on the subject, and come to view a complete argument from thesis to conclusion. But I intend to not keep it too formal. You see, because the way I go about it is that I pick a subject that I may have interest in, or I may grow my interest in, and then I seek, by reading about the subject, by reading, sometimes restricted to peer-reviewed academic articles, but I try to then seek the wave of passion. Then I intend to surf it. And as a result of that, my papers, my expression with adequate references gets put on paper, gets put in text form, and then I get to present them. So I intend to, like it's gotten to the degree, I think, with some of my professors, that even if I had not, if I had forgotten to put my name on my papers when I submitted them, they would know that it was me who had written it. I think that's how distinct my paper, happened to be. Let's say a class with 15 people, 25 people, right? The teacher reads my paper among others. Let's say after, let's say 3 essays, probably certainly, like, even if I didn't write my name, it'd be obvious. I think there's a certain cadence to how the arguments are presented and articulated, and it's not too formal. I think it's almost tuned to a precise symmetry. You know. Now, am I being arrogant by saying that? You know, but I intend this for people who who are seeking a purpose or a direction in their life. Instead of asking the question, um, what do you want to do after you finish school, or what is your career going to be? Rather than that, follow a passion. Ask, how do you think your creativity can best be expressed? In what way, in what activity can this person engage in that their creativity is presented in its most ex- extent form. But the thing is, another thing you got to consider is that there may be certain activities that you never got to try, that you never put the lessons in, let's say for 18 months threshold. Let's say this person had a talent in piano, but they never end up in piano classes, let's say with discipline and forcing it for 15 or 18 months. I mean, who knows? Maybe they could have, it could have been the beginning to a fantastic career, a beautiful musician. I wish I was a pianist, but and perhaps I could still pick it up. But I wonder how long that take. How long? I wonder if it'd be less than, say, learning a new language. Because I found that learning a new language, especially after adolescence, after puberty, to be particular, it becomes extremely difficult to pick up a new language. The grammar is just daunting. Daunting. I mean, I try to learn, Russian, and I didn't get that far, So I think the only real way that I could end up picking it up was, I don't know. I'm thinking is if they put me on a chopper and go to some rural Siberian town, just drop me off. Just drop me off. Don't give a damn about me for 24 months. 24 months, all right. No contact, and I just try to make my way through there. I mean, I guess accommodation would be ideal, but so you don't end up as a panhandler. But I think in that environment, because you are forced to learn the new language, there's certainly, if you're going to interact with people, there's certainly going to be that exchange of lingual information, and this is going to proceed months after months after months. I mean, I remember I was traveling around in Asia. I was in a country for 4 months, and within those 4 months, I spoke very little English. All right, very little English. And then in the fifth month, I went to a new country, and I met an expat. And I'm like, oh shit, man! I can speak freely. I can express myself. You know, um, I can express myself more easily. With more freedom, because the fundamental distinction is the width of vocabulary. I mean, if I had proportioned vocabulary, let's say in my mother tongue, then I would have no problem. I'd have no problem expressing myself, reading, apprehending, comprehending, you know, doing everything I could in English and do it in Uzbek, because I think expression is very important. It's not necessarily about being pompous, but rather it's about being precise in one's expression. Because if you use, generic words, they have a wide extent in their definition. You know, it lacks, uh, it lacks. Oh, where was I going with that? It lacks certainty. It lacks precision. So wide extent. It's not really. It lacks meaning. Exactly. So for for you to be prudent about how you approach in your expression, it is important to some degree. It is important to some degree. For example, you don't want to repeat a word too frequently. That just starts to become notable in people once if they do that and you notice it. But you also want to express yourself in a way that could, in a theme or in a pace that characterizes you. And perhaps a lot of people do that unconsciously already. You know, there should be an experiment to see. Get the transcripts, let's say, of some podcast or something, but you don't put the names on them, right? And you try to erase the parts where names are referenced, and try to see by reading the transcripts if the person can determine who's who. You know, well, I guess since it's sometimes question and answer, it it may be easy in that way. But let's see how far we got here. 12 minutes. 44, maybe 5 more minutes. How was that? Maybe 5 more minutes. Yeah, so basically, what I had to say was, check out those two presentations. It's my own expression of my political and philosophical beliefs. At least a certain aspect of them, which I could express, in this video in particular. As I express more of them, you start to get a more complete picture of my political and philosophical vantage point. I mean, even if it's distinct from yours and not worth considering for you, you get to perhaps encounter a alternative viewpoint and at least momentarily entertain that perspective. It may also happen to positively affect, perhaps in buttressing or tempting to deviate from your own patterns that which you find yourself conforming to. Yeah, so check out those two presentations. There's one about religion and there's one about politics. The one about politics is actually in response to a podcast episode I came across, right? Between David Birnbaum and Tim Moen, right? Leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada. You guys should check it out. It's about philosopher kings. And what I had basically intended to do in that presentation is contribute to that discussion. Because it is a discussion. It should not be shrugged off that easily. You could easily do part two with that because because there may be something there, something that may be something which our theoretical models could be augmented with, you know, something to entertain, you know, simply something to entertain. I want to see how libertarians would think of that idea, a libertarian politburo. You know, let's say they get together a couple times a month, twice a month, and the five of them or the six of them just sit down and talk for like 3 hours. And it's all recorded and presented like a podcast. And these people are now, our governors basically, but their title is custodians of the law. So they are the Politburo, they are the elite. But it'd be really interesting to see what the content of the conversation would be in those, 2 meetings a month. You would have a set of laws, but they don't exceed a page. And they basically, talk about the various potential issues or issues that are perceived that way. But then what they basically intend to do for you is, is to remind you, is to present to you how the immutable laws, the set of immutable laws, applies and facilitates the route to the best possible outcome, and how anything else would be, in principle and fundamentally, a violation of, let's say, the non-aggression principle, because they could possibly engage through coercion, which we have to be opposed, right? Because of our principles, right? Anyways, that's enough of me talking. I guess I'll hear this out later and see what it's about. Alright, have a good night.